What if every single night, without warning, someone just switched you off? You got into bed, closed your eyes, maybe thought about something completely random, and then it was morning. No fade, no blur. No last memory slowly dissolving into darkness. Just a hard cut, like a film that skips straight from scene one to the credits with nothing in between. Here's what makes that so strange. You've fallen asleep tens of thousands of times. Sleep takes up roughly a third of your entire life. It's one of the most repeated experiences a human being ever goes through, and yet not once, not a single time, have you ever actually caught yourself crossing that line between conscious and unconscious. It just happens, and you're never there to witness it. That's not a coincidence. That's not a flaw in your memory. There's a real reason your brain erases that moment every night, and the explanation goes much deeper than you'd expect. If that already gave you chills, you're going to want to stick around for what comes next. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me if you've ever noticed yourself falling asleep, and subscribe so you don't miss this. Let's get into it. From the moment you wake up, your brain starts building a case against itself. Every single hour, you're conscious. Your brain is burning energy, and as a direct byproduct of all that mental activity, it produces a chemical called adenosine. Think of it like exhaust from an engine. The harder your brain works, the more adenosine accumulates. And unlike most things your body produces, adenosine has one very specific job: to make you feel like you absolutely cannot keep going. It doesn't happen all at once. It's slow, gradual, almost invisible until it isn't. That heavy feeling behind your eyes late in the afternoon, that's adenosine. That desperate need to just lie down after a long day. Also, adenosine. It quietly piles up hour after hour, pressing down on the brain's arousal systems like a hand slowly pushing a dimmer switch to ward off. And here's the part that might genuinely change how you start your mornings. Coffee doesn't give you energy, not even close. What caffeine actually does is block your adenosine receptors, so your brain simply can't read the signal telling it how exhausted it already is. You're not getting a boost, you're borrowing against a debt your body is still keeping track of. And while adenosine is doing its work, something else is happening in the background. Your circadian rhythm, your internal 24-hour biological clock, controlled deep inside your hypothalamus, starts pulling back, its alerting signals as the day winds down. The pineal gland releases melatonin. Your core body temperature drops slightly. The entire chemical landscape of your brain begins tilting, slowly but deliberately, away from wakefulness. These two forces, the adenosine buildup and the circadian shift, eventually converge, and when they do, a cluster of neurons in the hypothalamus throws what can only be described as a neurological switch. The brain stops fighting to stay awake, and what happens next is where things get genuinely unsettling. Deep inside your brain, there's a structure that most people have never heard of, and yet it's responsible for literally everything you've ever consciously experienced. It's called the thalamus, and during every waking moment of your life, it's working as a relay station, routing information from the outside world to your cortex. Every sound you hear, every sensation you feel, every image your eyes capture, all of it passes through the thalamus first before it ever reaches the thinking, perceiving, remembering parts of your brain. When you're awake, that gate is wide open. Information flows constantly. Your cortex stays fed, and your conscious experience feels seamless and continuous. But as sleep onset begins, something shifts. A structure called the reticular thalamic nucleus starts inhibiting the thalamus's relay cells progressively, deliberately, like someone slowly closing a heavy door. The outside world doesn't disappear. The sounds are still there. Your phone buzzing across the room, a car passing outside, the hum of an air conditioner. But those signals stop being forwarded upstairs. The cortex starts getting cut off. And here's what that means for your memory. Without that steady stream of incoming information, your cortex, the part of your brain responsible for conscious experience and memory formation, starts running out of data to process. It can't build coherent memories from nothing. It needs input. And input is exactly what's being taken away, piece by piece in real time. So here's the actual answer, and it's more precise than most people ever realize. You can't remember falling asleep because the process of falling asleep is your brain actively dismantling its own ability to record experience. The recording doesn't stop when you're unconscious, it stops on the way there. And what happens during that in-between window is something most people have absolutely no idea even exists. Here's where it gets genuinely strange. That in-between window, the brief, blurry threshold between being awake and being fully asleep, isn't empty. It isn't blank. It actually has a name. Scientists call it hypnagogia, and it's technically classified as stage 1 sleep. And during this state, your brain doesn't go quiet. It does something completely unexpected. It starts generating its own sensory experiences completely on its own, without any input from the outside world whatsoever. Researchers have documented what happens when people are woken up during hypnagogia, and the reports are remarkable. People describe seeing geometric shapes drifting across their visual field, flashes of unfamiliar faces, places they've never been. Some hear their name being called out clearly, as if someone is right there in the room. Others catch fragments of music that don't exist. Your brain, with the outside world cut off, starts producing its own hallucinations every single night. And then there's the hypnic jerk, that sudden, violent sensation of falling, followed by your entire body jolting awake like something grabbed you. Around 60 to 70% of people experience this regularly. The leading theory is that as your muscles begin to relax during sleep onset, your brain misreads that physical release as your body losing its balance and literally falling. So it fires an emergency correction signal, and your body snaps back hard, pulling you partially out of sleep before the process even finishes. You go through all of this every single night, the hallucinations, the falling sensation, the full body jolt, and you wake up with zero memory of any of it. Because by the time hypnagogia begins, your hippocampus, the brain's memory gateway, has already shifted into a mode associated with accelerated forgetting, not memory formation. The recorder isn't just paused, it's been switched to erase. Most of us carry this idea that falling asleep is like flipping a switch. One moment you're aware, the next you're gone, and somewhere in between there's a clean, definable line. But sleep researchers have spent decades studying exactly this, and what they've found completely dismantles that picture. Sleep onset isn't a single event. It's what neuroscientists describe as a local phenomenon, meaning different regions of your cortex don't fall asleep at the same time. Some areas go first. Others lag behind, still showing patterns of wakefulness, while neighboring regions have already gone offline. You've actually felt this without realizing it. Think about the last time you dozed off somewhere you weren't supposed to, a long lecture, a slow meeting, a late-night drive where someone else was talking. You could still hear sounds. You may have even caught fragments of what was being said, but you weren't processing it. Parts of your brain were already asleep, while other parts were still picking up signals from the room. That's not you being tired. That's local sleep in action, your brain going down in stages, region by region, like a city slowly losing its lights. This means there is no single moment of falling asleep. There's a window, a gradient, a progressive dimming across different neural systems happening at slightly different speeds. Consciousness doesn't end in one clean cut. It unravels. Which brings us to the most precise image of what actually happens every night. Imagine trying to film yourself falling asleep while holding the camera. At some point, your grip loosens. The camera tilts. The last frames catch the ceiling spinning before it hits the floor. That's your awareness on the way out. The observer is the very last thing to shut down, and it shuts down just before it can record anything at all. And yet, what your sleeping brain does with all that silence after the lights go out is something else entirely. Here's something that reframes everything. Sleep isn't just rest. It's an active, highly selective editing process, and your brain runs it every single night without asking for your input. While you're unconscious, your hippocampus and cortex are in constant conversation, replaying the experiences of the day, deciding what gets consolidated into long-term memory and what gets permanently erased. Your brain is making editorial decisions about your own life while you have absolutely no say in it. And that experience of falling asleep, those last few heavy, foggy, solving minutes of consciousness, doesn't make the cut, not even close. From your brain's perspective, that content has no survival value. It carries no significant emotional weight, no actionable information, nothing worth the metabolic cost of storing. It's the mental equivalent of a blank waiting room. So the brain does what any efficient system does with low-priority data. It deletes it. Those minutes vanish not because something went wrong, but because your own brain made a deliberate choice to throw them away. But here's where it gets truly unsettling. There's a condition called paradoxical insomnia, also known as sleep state misperception, where people wake up, completely convinced they didn't sleep at all. They'll swear they were awake every single hour through the night. And yet, when researchers attach IG electrodes and monitor their brain activity, the data shows perfectly normal sleep architecture. The brain was objectively, measurably asleep. But some part of it, some internal narrator, kept insisting otherwise. Which means the voice in your head that says, "I'm still awake, I'm still here, I'm still aware," that voice can be wrong. Your brain can be fully asleep while that narrator is still talking. And at some point, that narrator goes quiet too. Nobody notices, because by then, there's no one left to notice anything at all. There's something deeply strange about the way you experience yourself. From the moment you wake up to the moment you close your eyes, your consciousness feels like one unbroken thread, a continuous, seamless stream of you moving through the day. Your thoughts, your memories, your sense of being a single, coherent person, it all feels solid and uninterrupted. But that thread snaps every single night. And you never notice because the part of you that would notice is precisely the part that goes offline first. The ancient Greeks felt the weight of this without any neuroscience to explain it. Aristotle described sleep as a state between living and not living, not death, but not quite life either. And in Greek mythology, Hypnos, the god of sleep, was the twin brother of Thanatos, the god of death. That wasn't an accident, and it wasn't born from fear. It was a philosophical intuition about something genuinely uncomfortable, that every night the self undergoes a kind of nightly suspension, a temporary disappearance that nobody witnesses, including you. And yet, here's what makes this extraordinary rather than disturbing. Your brain isn't failing when it doesn't record the moment you fall asleep. It's making a deliberate trade-off. Sleep is too important to biologically critical for memory consolidation, cellular repair, emotional regulation, cognitive function to be interrupted by the act of documenting itself. So the brain prioritizes the process over the record of the process. Every night, you vanish, and every morning something that carries your memories, your personality, your sense of continuous identity picks up exactly where you left off, restored, consolidated, functional. That version of you doesn't remember the disappearance, it never has. And somehow, without ever agreeing to it, you've been completely fine with that arrangement your entire life. Which raises one more question worth sitting with for a moment. Every single night, your brain runs a process so complex, so precise, and so deeply hidden from your own awareness that most people will go their entire lives without ever questioning it. You just did. You stayed until the end, you followed every layer of this. And that says something real about the kind of mind you have. Genuinely curious, willing to look deeper than the surface of things. If that's who you are, this channel was built for you. Subscribe right now because there is so much more coming. Questions that look ordinary from the outside and turn out to be some of the most fascinating rabbit holes you'll ever fall into. And drop a comment below saying, "Still here," so I know exactly who made it to the end of this one. If this video shifted something in how you think about sleep or consciousness, leave a like. It genuinely helps more curious people find this content. And the next video is already on your screen. Don't let the algorithm decide what you watch next. You choose,